50,000 people lived here. Now, 22,000 remain. The rest? They vanished into the Russian machine. This is Enerhodar, Ukraine's gift of energy, home to Europe's largest nuclear power plant. For decades, a Soviet dream city where nuclear families raised their children in tree-lined prosperity. But since March 2022, it's become Russia's testing ground for something far more sinister than nuclear physics. This is how you erase a nation, one city at a time. Vladimir Sukhanov taught chess in Enerhodar for 30 years. He'd escaped Soviet repression once before, fled Moscow after watching soldiers gun down his student during pro-democracy protests in 1991. The officer in charge? A young lieutenant named Sergei Surovikin. 3 decades later, General Surovikin commanded Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Sukhanov couldn't believe it. The same man who'd destroyed his life twice. He packed a single bag, grabbed his plastic chess set, and fled his home forever. Russia's first target wasn't military infrastructure or government buildings. It was the schools. Within months, Ukrainian textbooks vanished. Children were forced to pledge allegiance to Putin. Those who refused, their families faced visits from Russian intelligence. 80% of teachers fled. The remaining students now celebrate the annexation of Crimea as a school holiday. They join Putin youth organizations. They learn that Ukraine never existed as a real nation. Mark Komarov was 15 when Russian intelligence came for him. 3 separate visits, 3 separate threats. Why wasn't he in Russian school? Why wouldn't he compete under their flag? The final ultimatum was simple: conform or disappear into an orphanage. This teenager, raised by his grandmother while his parents battled addiction, stared down the FSB. He chose exile over surrender. President Zelensky honored him for refusing to compete under the Russian flag. Natalia and Yevhen were Russian-born musicians who'd made Enerhodar their home for 45 years. They performed for nuclear plant executives, raised their son in this atomic utopia. But when their homeland invaded their home, they became enemies in their own city. For 2 years, they lived like prisoners. Security cameras watched every street. Phone calls were monitored. Neighbors disappeared into the basement, the police station's torture cell. Speaking Ukrainian became dangerous. Existing became survival. Of 11,000 nuclear plant workers before the invasion, only 5,000 remain. 3,000 signed contracts with Rosatom, Russia's state nuclear company. The others? They faced midnight visits from FSB officers. Sign the contract or watch your family suffer. Alexei Brezhnev refused. He vanished in September 2022. His wife got one final video message in February 2023, then silence. Intelligence suggests he's imprisoned 600 kilometers away in Russia. No charges, no trial, just erasure. This isn't just military occupation, it's corporate colonization. Rosatom has invested $40 million transforming Enerhodar into a Russian city. They've opened Russian universities, hired Russian teachers, imported Russian families. They control the schools, the shops, even the swimming pools. Every aspect of life flows through Moscow's nuclear giant. It's a blueprint for absorption, not just of territory, but of identity itself. In June, Russian soldiers were filmed barbecuing and dancing 200 meters from an active nuclear reactor. Chechen Akhmat fighters treating Europe's largest nuclear plant like a military base. Another video showed soldiers firing weapons from reactor building windows. Nuclear experts called it absurd and clearly unacceptable. But for Russia, the message was clear. We'll do whatever we want, and the world will watch helplessly. First, they took the schools. Then, they took the children. Now, they're taking the homes. Russian law requires property registration with Russian documents. No Russian passport, no home. 67 apartments have been officially repossessed. Families from Yaroslavl, Krasnodar, Irkutsk are moving in. On Telegram channels, Russians shop for Ukrainian homes like vacation rentals. The displacement is systematic, calculated, complete. Volodymyr fought to liberate his village. A mortar blast took his right eye. Now discharged, he lives alone in Zaporizhzhia, no closer to home than when he enlisted. His 12-year-old son remains trapped in Enerhodar with his ex-wife, attending Russian schools, learning Russian history. The boy asks constantly, "When are you coming home, Daddy?" Putin holds Europe's largest nuclear plant hostage not for energy, but for leverage. Every missile that flies near Enerhodar sends a message. We can create another Chernobyl anytime we choose. It's nuclear blackmail with an entire city as collateral. 50,000 lives reduced to pawns in Putin's geopolitical chess game. And unlike Sukhanov's gentle chess lessons, This game has no rules. 3 years ago, children in Enerhodar waved Ukrainian flags to celebrate their nuclear plant. Today, they wave Russian flags or disappear forever. 3 years ago, Volodymyr promised his son he'd be home soon. Today, that son learns Russian history and calls it his own. This isn't war. War ends. This is erasure. And erasure is forever. The Soviet planners who founded Enerhodar called it the gift of energy. They believed atoms could power dreams, that technology could build utopia. They never imagined their gift would become a weapon, not of destruction, but of erasure. The question isn't whether Enerhodar will survive. It's whether we'll remember who they were before Russia decided who they should become. In Zaporizhzhia tonight, Sukhanov teaches chess to children who can never go home. Each move they learn is an act of resistance. Each game they play whispers a truth Putin cannot silence. We remember.